Road right, and rended matter mated, the end of time would rhyme, with all that climbs drunk and elated, were the natted nest of noise, and winded music married, the offspring of chaos would offer poise to all who stagger and are harried. But till such time as there's no more fight, or our end has left us laying on that blurry bed of cloud, I'll goddamn well continue saying the crooked road is right, and drunk sotted passions should still be allowed to celebrate breathing by reading poetry out loud. Anyway, it's called A Sky Stretching Luxurious with Marina. Marina's lover has gone to Rome, leaving Marina to roam alone, a bud about to burst in the garden of our villaggio here in the north, drinking at the cafe in Piazza Centro tonight, leaning back in my chair, a sky stretching luxurious with Marina, drunk with stars as much as absinthe, as much as the opportunity born by her man's absence. What's a poet to do? With my flawed Italian, do I dare open the rusted door of my mouth and speak to dear Carina Marina? Tonight I've asked the sky, cobblestone and piazzas, all that might conspire to help me acquire the one night with Cara Marina I desire. Of course, it's not my style to go after another man's girl, but here we are speaking of a world where I find I've no words to talk, a world dictated by young Marina's legs as she walks, a world whose only sotto voce heard, lilting in a whisper that makes me hard, belongs to her. Marina's beauty in an empty strada finds me standing from my seat, leaving the cafe in Piazza Centro, following her steps, losing my grip as Marina looks over her shoulder with a smile from her full lips. Just the goddamn encouragement I need. Call me shallow. Say my head is hollow. Say no poem of substance will come of such a nocturnal diversion. Let no lines in my mind arrive to render how this brown-eyed girl here, like a sign warning curves ahead, makes me surrender, having polished off a bottle with my foot pressing the throttle of my appetite to the goddamn floor. Fuck it, just to finish the war with this thing called poetry. I'll wave the white flag of a blank page. Who cares why these pages were born? This drivel waiting for a match to burn. Let my syllables be sore, words weak, my language's muscles torn, unable to lift a decent poem to the page in this dimly lit strata. Now walking arms linked with Marina. All that matters is the night ahead. This next poem brings us back to New York, in fact, specifically to JFK Airport. I really have to say, I had some input on the idea, the original thought from a dear friend, Stephen. It's called Movie Mix-Up at JFK Airport. A woman finds herself standing face to face with a man she did not at all expect to see in the crowd of travelers at this exact moment or location, the international arrivals terminal at JFK, the exit ramp, the place where they stop, stare at each other, but do not speak. While other travelers rush after their workaday life, this moment is maybe just a speck as the woman and man are suspended, looking for what's left in each other's tired eyes. But there are different movies playing in their heads of their years together. And no matter how hard they stare, search for some shared remnant in each other's irises, pupils, their separate movies continue to unwind in their heads, leaving them both stuck in the same but distinct theater, watching their own internal cinema projection of two alternate films on the big screen of their lives. This is how an airport terminal becomes a blur of too many different movies flickering, too much salt on the popcorn, too many misleading previews, too many suitcases on wheels, too many voices on cell phones after landing, all in the mad rush to move across this place the world calls America. This is called Song of an American Generation. With drug-fueled dreams and torn and faded jeans, swearing off suits and ties, swearing off the lure of the almighty buck, swearing how we'd never grow old or give a fuck about such garbage as two-car garages, we were going to be different. Dancing, deliciously drunk down dimly lit streets and dimly lit loves, we still somehow managed to stand against the war in Vietnam and believed in King's dream when peace and equality was seen as just around the corner. We were going to change the world. Later, with bloodshot eyes and dilated pupils, we stayed awake for endless days, debated inspired theories of nonsense in an acid haze, skinny dipped in lakes of wild ideas, street naked in streets paved with fears, paved slick and glistening wet with ecstatic tears, still determined to be different. But now, it's another century, the age of another generation's lust, and those of us who are not entirely lost, who can still hear our youth like an old song played with a dusty needle, tracking along the static of our past on vinyl. We are finding the song of our generation fading, both the melody and lyrics receding. Yet last night, eating a late dinner in a crowded West Side cafe, I saw a white-haired couple groping on the sidewalk on Broadway. The old lady was rubbing her arthritic paw up and down the crotch of the old man's corduroys while he was busy in her sweater. All this in front of the crowded cafe. As people walked by the amorous couple, most pretended not to notice, as we New Yorkers tend to, but others were laughing, snickering. As for myself, I wasn't sure how to respond, but then I realized I admired them, these two white-haired, romantic remnants of a once promising generation. For this may be exactly where we end up, despite the loftiest ambitions and invincible experiments of our youth, white-haired and groping in the dark on the crowded sidewalk of life, ignored or ridiculed, but, if we are lucky, still able to hold a loved one close. Well, I'll just read it. It's a line forever twisting north. Before I'm old enough to be left alone, after my parents go to work, by morning's first light, I watch my Zadie pouring vodka into his orange juice. He scratches his beard, winks at me, downs the drink, wipes his lip with his bathrobe sleeve, and I want to talk about Mickey Mantle, but Zadie's talking about the old country. Years before the Nazis, there was the Tsar, what sent my oldest brother to Siberia, and my mother, Oliver Sholem, your great-grandmother, who never complained to nobody, wanted to visit him. Only in them days there was no train what went so far north. Yeah, so what'd she do, Zadie? Well, she says how, without her firstborn son, she's like a Shabbos candle with no wick. Then she left. For a moment, I imagine a long walk, a wilderness of snow, a forest of ice, a line forever twisting north. So what'd you do, Zadie? Me? My grandfather chokes the neck of the vodka bottle. In the words of Delmore Schwartz, I come to America to be a czar myself. And the display of hunger so apparent in their eyes, as if they'd half a mind to devour a plate of burnt poet next. In that moment, I lost my appetite, stood, shrugged, headed for the door, and moved on. The title poem of my next book, which will be coming out next year, which is called Another Night in a Rented Room. Another night, stoned, on the floor by the fire, giving in completely to desire, polishing off a bottle the way champions of pleasure drink, when the want defeats whatever the hell others think and takes over in both of us. Another night blessed by the burning in both of us, in the furnace beneath skin, fueled by the needful thing we share, washed up on the shore, line of life's tangled sheets and linen. Like abstractions or some magic spell, the stuff that turns keys and opens a cell. Like most things minus a boundary. Most things embracing uncertainty. We've a reward as much in our searching as in our finding how an answer can dwell in what others sell, short and dismiss as just any sort of night. Let others offer their brilliant complaint. Say this poem is old school, quaint. Let such critical puppies chasing their tails faint, or scratching fleas behind their ears be left to whimper for years. As for you and me, your whispers only toss kindling, add to the burning trope of a flame-lit night as our bodies grope, with no need to cope with walking wounded, penned in a barbed wire world. As for you and me tonight, the world is this rented room. This poem, I'm going to really ask your indulgence because we're going to relocate to the year 1946. This is called Homage to Golda, 1946. A cough after a wet cigarette is all Golda can offer the doctor when he stops speaking, tugs on his beard, and steps toward her. Did you hear me, he asks. No reply. She hugs her bag, feels ill. Here's where Sister Esther is locked up. The diagnosis, schizophrenia, does not translate into Yiddish. Here, the doors are bolted. My grandmother's looked for an exit past the shuffling, bathrobed shoulders. Sivia, her cousin, is somewhere in Palestine. She'd lost it when they started to empty the ghetto, robbed by the Poles who'd promised to sell guns. She got some from others anyway. In Warsaw at 16, Sylvia lost it, then killed Nazis, killed more Nazis, then escaped through the sewers, made her way to the promised land, killed British soldiers. Did you hear me? Do you understand what I just said? Golda doesn't hear the doctor, just hugs her bag tighter. What else? Half-sisters in Argentina, Sister Sarah in Brooklyn, useless, in a haze, spending winters swimming off Coney Island. So Golda turns, asks, as if the doctor is in the hall, on a horse, high in the saddle, waving a saber. You're Cossack? But the doctor doesn't understand her Russian, just tilts his head, stares at her. And my grandmother knows that look. This is called Maybe There's Too Much Manhattan. Maybe there's too much Manhattan. Here is where I started and always return. More than London, here the city spills over the lip of each glass I drink from, over the slate bar of each dive where centuries hide and come alive. Of course, there's too much Manhattan. It floods the boathouse in the park and agitates the currents of the Hudson. Here, even more than Rome, is the most resilient town on the globe. Here, around the clock, the reach of inconsistent architecture defines in its varying lines the brittle logic of history as injury. Yes, it's Manhattan, not Paris, that truly delivers lectures in traffic, writes and rehearses plays on buses, and composes symphonies of secrets to be performed on steel subways, spilling from the Lincoln Center's fountain, spilling over the Bethesda in the park. It makes streets and avenues slippery. Here, horses bolt from carriages lined up in front of the plaza. Yes, of course, there's too much Manhattan for one island. Yet, here is where I can write and say fuck cash. And even if most of my poems are trash, syllables that merely scratch and thrash across a page, here is where my bantering verses first started to swim fast, and my metric feet, perhaps even years from now, might still be kicking, leaving their own slight splash. I had this idea years ago of what I like to call disposable art, disposable poetry specifically. It would be something I'd write a draft, and this would be just one draft for one night, for one event, and it was disposable poems. Different for any given reading. And so I've decided to offer as my finale for you just such a piece tonight. This is called The Oath. I swore I wouldn't think of you. I resolved not to speak of you, not to scribble another whimpering poem about you that I'd only have to destroy. But now your name is uttered in the same breath as this clown, some lame puppy artist you've trained who I saw today downtown. What drugs does he fancy with his frown? Still, I swore. I took an oath. How I'd forget the times we thought blessed. Forget the feel of your lips on my chest. Forget your scent after sex. So have you taught your artist how to fetch? Screw all oaths, call me a wretch. It seems my oath resists growth and cannot be etched in stone, but offers only a smudged charcoal sketch, a rough drawing of me without you. But whatever this is, it's certainly more rubbish I won't publish. It's still more drivel about you that once read must be destroyed, torn into goddamn shreds.